Here she comes! Growing up, I always wanted to know who they were. There's always like a piece of you that's never really fulfilled.
We are going to the Chinese Bureau of Affairs.
I went through biological parents, foster parents, and then adoptive parents. Had in my mind I had to be the perfect child to prove to them that they honestly adopted me for a reason.
There were times where I didn't want to be Chinese. Am I good enough? Is what I'm doing okay?
Having those moments, taking a bath, taking a shower, so people wouldn't hear me cry.
My name is Zoe.
I'm Cosette Eisenhower.
In July of 2020, I had a really big medical issue where I ended up in the hospital, and there was a lot of back and forth of oh, is this genetic? Let's run some tests. And I was like, well, I can't tell you if it's genetic or not. And then my platelet count was going down, and they had no idea why. And so then they started talking about taking a bone marrow sample. And so I started thinking about all these what ifs, what if I need a bone marrow transplant? Well, I don't know any biological relatives that could donate bone marrow to me. So, I was scared and really anxious, I think. Since it was during COVID, I couldn't have any visitors. So I was stuck in the hospital for 19 days and I didn't see anyone. So I couldn't see my mom or my sister. Now I had this problem that they weren't sure what caused it, and I was so worried that well, what if something's wrong with me, and what if it is a genetic thing that I can't change? So I think it was just really scary thinking about all the what ifs and the whys.
So I was bullied honestly from elementary school, junior high. I got bullied for being adopted. I got bullied for being Asian and my parents being white. I was told I was unwanted, told that I was unlovable, told me that I wasn't pretty. Junior high, I had people that I thought were my friends cyberbullying me, telling me that I shouldn't be on this earth, that I should just go kill myself. And it was hard. My mom knew something was up. She asked me if I was okay, and I just was like, yeah, I'm all good. Put on that fake smile and just went with my day, because I had to face those people that I thought were my friend, and had to figure out if I was just gonna be fake and pretend nothing happened, or if I was just gonna completely ignore them.
Hello.
Hi.
What's up?
Nothing much. What about you? How's class?
I think I was adopted before she was, but our parents are all in this one big circle of adoptive parents, and it's called Families with Children from China, and then it was the North Texas sector of that. So we all are the same age, we all graduated high school at the same time, so we had that connection, and we did a lot of things together, Chinese New Year or New Year's, or going to a pumpkin patch or having birthday parties, things like that. So we always would make sure to keep in touch with each other and things like that.
Keeping me busy. My English class, the professor, I know what she wants, but I'm not doing what she wants type thing, but she also doesn't explain it in the
So my
instructions.
mom knew her mom before they adopted me. And so right off the bat, we kind of just became friends. We're both in college. She goes to college in Ohio, and then I'm in Texas still. And we're still able to keep in touch when we're both able to be free. We created a account called navigating_adoption on Instagram. I really wanted to create it just because I wanted an outlet to be able to talk about the struggles of being adopted without having people tell me that my thoughts were wrong and I should be grateful for being adopted.
We'd reach a lot of different people. We reached like adult adoptees and younger adoptees and like international and domestic adoptees. And then we also reach like birth parents and adoptive parents and then people not involved at all. So I think it's really cool that we're able to like reach so many different kinds of populations with our work.
As I got older and realized how many people did not know what adoption was, the struggle of adoption, the emotions of being an adoptee, that adoption isn't all rainbows and pretty stars and all of those things, that there was sadness to it also, really made me want to advocate for adoption even more. I was abandoned when I was 2 days old. I was abandoned in Zhanjiang, Guangdong, China, and it was actually raining and storming that day. Really dark and gloomy day, which kind of signifies what happened that day of me getting abandoned and everything.
July 3rd, 2002, we got a package through FedEx, delivered it, and in the envelope there was a picture of Cosette, basic information like her size and weight, and the minute I saw her picture there was no question, she was ours. She was a little distant, like, I don't know, tired or just numb. You know, they had traveled from the south. It's like 5 hours by the bus. And I'm sure she had no idea what was happening, and we were strangers, and we smelled different and looked different. And
no, nothing prepares you for seeing your baby the first time. Tonya and I had been anticipating seeing Cosette for so long, and then actually having the adoption workers actually place her into our arms was just an amazing emotional experience.
she was found by a crowd of people outside of a hospital that she was 2 days old based on her umbilical cord. She became unhealthy in the orphanage. She was losing weight and not eating, and she was diagnosed with failure to thrive. We talked about adoption from the day she was part of our family. We talked about her birth mom and birth parents. And of course, you want to be careful to give someone information that's age appropriate and do it in a way that isn't gonna, but no, I don't remember the first time we talked about abandonment because we talked about it constantly.
I think it was at a very young age, I really wanted to know who my birth parents were and really started asking those questions on why did my parents abandon me? Like, what was the reason for that? Was it because, one thing I always told myself was it because I wasn't pretty enough? Was it because I wasn't good enough, even though I was only 2 days old or a day old?
She's had different kinds of cameras.
When I was in kindergarten, my mom was 10 minutes late, and I bawled my eyes out because I thought she abandoned me.
She didn't tell me that, but I knew that she was afraid of being abandoned. I made sure that I was at school before the bell rang so that she didn't have to stand on the corner and feel alone because I knew she was afraid.
I know most likely in that instant, if I truly thought about it, she probably didn't because she was always on time, but it was traffic or something. But In my mind, it was like, she's 10 minutes late. They abandoned me, just like the other people did. So I think it was a mix of just fear, but I think the abandonment issues were really just unsure of the world, pretty much.
I was adopted from Guangxi Province, China at 11 months old. I just remember that I was very curious growing up. I always wanted to know about my biological family. I think I just wanted to know them and speak with them. So I guess I just decided to like pick up the phone and pretend to call them. There's always like a piece of you that's never really fulfilled, if that makes sense, because you obviously like you grow up with this family that loves and cares for you, but you never really feel like you belong really, because there's always that one part that's missing, and it's like, oh, I don't have any connection to my origins, and I don't know anything about, you know, if I have a...
Starting with her referral pictures and traveling with Zoe. Zoe got to go with us to China.
In 2000, I started the paperwork to adopt Zoe. 2001, I adopted her, and in 2005, I adopted Maya. I got the call from the agency saying that the referral was in and that I had a child. Her name was Jin Yiling, so I remember being at the computer just waiting for that email to come through and then trying to get the photo to load. And slowly, Zoe's picture came up, and this was this beautiful, beautiful round-faced girl with these beautiful lips. When the director of the orphanage handed her to me, she just grabbed onto me like she couldn't let go. She put her head on my chest, and I think she was scared. When I look at her face now, I see how scared she was. But at that point, I was thrilled at how she seemed to be trusting me. And she didn't cry, and we were in the room with the director for a while they gave me some information about Zoe. And it wasn't until I took her back to my room and I tried to put her down that she started to cry. And after that, I picked her back up, and I don't think I put her down again for maybe 2 years.
This is the note that the orphanage told me was found with Zoe that has her date and time of birth. And it's on red paper.
What we learned was that she was left on a bridge, a pedestrian walkway of a bridge that connected the rural area to the city of Guiping. And she was found in a box, wrapped in 3 layers of clothing and wrapped in a new towel. She had a hat on her head, and there was a red note left with her that gave her date and time of birth.
And this is a copy of her adoption certificate.
We talked about birth parents from the very beginning. I didn't want there ever to be a big reveal where she didn't know and then now she knows. So I sort of made it a normal part of her story.
I know from like the beginning, like I've always talked with her about my birth parents. Like we would read books together and we would always talk about adoption, like ever since I could speak and start understanding everything.
So when I would tell her her story, it always started exactly the same way. I'd say, you grew in your birth mother's tummy until it was time for you to be born. Your birth parents couldn't take care of you the way that they want to take care of a baby, so they made sure you were safe until a forever family could be found for you.
I would say she's very supportive. She's always been like supportive of what I want to pursue and who I am. She's very like kind and understanding. I feel like I can always come to her and talk to her about anything. And even though like she can't relate to everything that I'm feeling because she's not adopted herself, she has ways of like gearing me towards the people who can. So she got me involved in most of my adoption organizations because she knew like that it was important to me to work through these things. So she directed me to these groups that helped me with that.
I wanted it to be normalized, that she had a birth family and she had an adoptive family, and that it was okay for her to love both of those families, that there was no competition between us.
I feel like being a single parent can be difficult when you're raising 2 children. So I think considering like having a full-time job and 2 kids at home, I think she did a really good job in like making sure we were happy and healthy and were able to get the education that we needed and things like that.
A lot of the stuff that I went through as a kid, I really just kept inside, feeling unlovable and just telling myself that I was unlovable, telling myself that I was unwanted, and all of those things I really do think caused me to have less friends. I always had my guard up with people. If I wanted to meet with someone and they were like, oh no, I can't, I'm busy, it's like, oh, they don't want me in their life. With anything that happened in school, I felt like I needed to get an A in order to impress my parents, to prove to them that they adopted me for a reason and they adopted me for a purpose, and that they didn't, like, I'm not gonna bring shame to them, pretty much. And that was as long as I can remember, pretty much until high school. Never really told my parents about that. Didn't want to cause any conflict in the family. So I kind of just had in my mind I had to be the perfect child.
Yeah, you got to strike a pose. You're a cheerleader. I got it 10 times.
Hold her up with one hand.
No. She believed a lie that she told herself, that she wasn't worthy, that she wasn't worth adopting, and that she had to prove to us. You know, we talked a lot when she was little about her being joyful. Recently, she communicated that put pressure on her to feel like she always had to be joyful. So sad that she heard that way. But it gave me a minute to be able to say, Cosette, I was happy to change stinky diapers. There was joy in having to put you in timeout because you were part of our family now. It wasn't that you were behaving in a happy way that brought joy to our family. Although she did behave in a happy way. She was a happy kid. But that wasn't what I meant by bringing joy to my family. What I meant was there was a missing piece, and she was the piece. And she came in and became, you know, she fit into that place. So yeah.
2018, we had 3 deaths in the family. My aunt, the dog that I had since I was 10 years old, and it was a dog, but still very a part of the family. And then my grandma passed away.
What started that was that my sister was murdered. It was probably one of the hardest things in my life. I didn't really recover personally. I still probably am not recovered. It's been 3 years. I didn't have the capacity to really help Cosette through any of that. And she really, it fed into some of her fears.
It was hard to not feel like they were leaving me, even though they were, but not feeling like they were abandoning me, was something that was really hard to wrap my mind around.
She allowed herself in her imagination. When something like that happens to you, the worst thing that you can imagine happens. The security of your life kind of disappears.
Going into my senior year, which was supposed to be the best year of my life, and it was a rough year of my life. So.
And she was pretty depressed about it, and she didn't want to burden me with it because she felt like I was already, and I was struggling a lot, okay? And so she didn't want to burden me with that, and she was in a really, really rigorous program at school. She was sleeping all the time, and that was really the trigger for me, is when I started to notice how much she was sleeping. Like, okay, that is definitely depression. And so, you know, I did at one point finally like get enough mom capacity to reach out to some teachers and to talk to a counselor for her. And
I think it was hard when my grandma passed away, just because my grandma and my grandpa also came to China when my parents adopted me. It felt like a part of me, like, that knew my story and that knew when I was like being adopted and all that process and everything was gone. And it was hard because of that, not to feel abandoned and everything from that, so.
I do the same for my work, but I wasn't like really conscious of it until I was closer to this age, 18 to adult. We never like learn in our classroom.
But if you do speak, I will be yourself. 显示
which caused the sickness to get. I think I've always been proud to be Chinese. So going into college, I wanted to take Chinese just because it's important to me to be able to speak my home language. Makes me feel more like in tune with who I am, and like wanting to be able to get to a point where I can like live there and have conversations with people in Chinese.
His uncle, so he needs to rise for about.
Last year we hired a researcher to go to our province, and she basically like printed out posters with our information, like encouraging people who did give up children to submit DNA samples, and then they would basically just match you in a program. So we did do that, and I wasn't really expecting much to come out of it. And for all I know, they could be like not in China anymore. They could have passed away, so I don't really know.
This is her finding ad that they put in the paper to find her birth parents. This was the newspaper.
We hired a searcher to go to the girls' province with posters with pictures of them as children, with information about their finding spots, put them together in a flyer and post the flyer in areas of town, hand the flyer to people. She went to the police station, she went to the orphanage, she went to the hospitals to ask about babies who were born around those times, to try to find information.
A few days after my 17th birthday, a researcher who looks at like finding ads and like twins separated at birth, he had an update from my province, and so my mom went to look and saw my orphanage name on it, and so she like reached out to a bunch of different groups, like, does anyone know who the daughter of this other name is? And we ended up finding the person who supposedly is my twin that we were separated from at birth. The only thing is, like, our records say she was born a day before me, and we don't really look anything alike. And we had 2 different DNA tests that said 2 different things. One of them said we weren't related, and the other one said that we were. It definitely impacted me a lot because it made me think a lot about how China's adoption system worked and like how giving up babies functioned, and like how many other children like have a long lost twin that they don't know about. So that was really interesting. And then I also remember like every Mother's Day and Father's Day we would write letters to them and we would burn them, which is like based off like the Chinese burning incense and sending up like prayers and like red envelopes and stuff like that. So that was kind of the base of that, was like getting our message up to wherever they are. A part of me still does believe that like they got the message somehow, or like I hope that they feel that I still think about them, and I would like to believe that they still think about me too. I took an intro psych class and I ended up loving it. I want to use like my psychology degrees and help adoptees because I know there's a really big like mental health stigma just in general. And I also just want to be there for like the Asian and Asian American community, because I know that there's a big stigma on mental health in that culture as well. And so I want to use my Chinese part and hopefully improve on my language proficiency so that like if people need a counselor who can speak Chinese, like I'm able to give them the help they need.
That's one thing that surprises people, that adoption issues are lifelong for adoptees. So many people think it's something that perhaps in childhood you might have these experiences, but once you're an adult, surely it's all different. But in fact, the studies show that even as adoptees become adults, they still have identity issues. Their adoption identity is still salient for them. And so it's not something that just goes away. And it's not something that adoptive parents can just love away. It's going to exist, and you might as well be open to it so you can talk to your kids about it, instead of just assuming that if they don't say anything, everything's okay.
She has some of the story too. Coordinate with anything, it's just fine.
I always knew I was Chinese. I never had the thought that I was white. And I think because of being brought so much into the culture, experiencing the culture, and my parents doing all of those things, like, really helped me.
Mom, each one's gonna have three, or do we want to leave these inside until...
I'm Andrew. I'm related to all of those people. And I know the Eisenhowers because I'm related to all of those people.
It's like every year I really pray over this meal. I feel like the Lord told me to gather our friends as family, and we do that every year before Thanksgiving.
Okay, I have regrets about my behavior. I might have done things that I'm not proud of, or I wouldn't have made the right choice or whatever. Just as a human and as a parent, I would make choices that were different, right, in my parenting. But in terms of adding those two to our family, no regrets. I would not change it.
Here we go. Hair flip. There you go.
I've actually been on the search for my birth family for the past 3 years. Just after knowing so much of the one-child policy, knowing they pretty much probably did not have a choice. So, yes, I would forgive them. I really just want to find them before I get married, because I want them to be able to attend the wedding and know that I succeeded in life.
And I hope someday she finds her.
Super caring, kind, always trying to help everyone.
He's really great, and I'm really grateful to have him, and yeah, enjoy.